Hey, hello everyone. This is Steve Barsh from Dreamit Ventures, bringing you another episode of Dreamit Live. These now focused on these challenging times. Today we're going to have a great guest, Duncan Davidson from Bullpen Capital, who's with us from Atherton, California. I think somewhere in California. Is that correct, Duncan?
Yes, in the Bay Area near Palo Alto.
Very cool, near Palo Alto. So welcome to Dreamit Live. Every day at Dreamit, we work with great early stage health tech, urban tech, and secure tech startups. Today, we're here to talk about best practices, particularly around the CARES Act and how startups can get funding coming into their startup more quickly. We know so many startups right now that are really focused on how do they extend their runway. So we wanted to talk with Duncan today. We'll have a conversation and give you some ideas about what is the CARES Act, what's it all about, what funding can you get, what could you expect, what are some of the tricks and traps. If you're a startup or an investor, you want to learn more about Dreamit, just check out dreamit.com. In the interim, let's dive in. Duncan, welcome to the show. And by the way, as we go through this, for the audience, if you agree or disagree with things we're saying, put it in the comment section. If you have a question as we're going through it, we're going to answer lots of questions. We'll probably have 15 minutes of questions at the end. If you're just joining us on the stream, please also note where you're streaming in from. We'd love to know what city around the world and what company you're working with. It's always fun to know who's on the stream with everybody. So, Duncan, sorry about that. Let's get started. How are you doing today?
Doing fine. Work from home.
I hear that. And we're all not traveling too much, right? Venture capitalists always complain they travel too much. Now all of a sudden it's like I can hear my suitcase calling from the closet above, like, let's go someplace. But no place to go. Got to stay home and stay safe. So, Duncan, just quickly, can you let people know who are you? Just a 1 minute, like, who is Duncan Davidson? What have you done? What are you doing these days? Love to know a little bit more about you.
The most relevant thing is I had 4 startups. 2 of them went public during the dot-com bubble.
Right.
For those who don't know how different it was, one of my companies I started in October 96, venture money July 97, goes public October 98.
Wow.
It raises $2.2 billion in a series of junk bonds. And in February 2000, it's worth $9 billion. That was fun. I had a second startup that I took public October 99 at the peak of the bubble.
Right.
For those in New York, I got to go to the final Yankee game when they won the World Series. It was a reward for going public. Right. And that also ticked up near $8-9 billion market cap. And the speed with which you go from startup to some kind of crazy IPO was stunning. It's not like that anymore. I went to a big venture fund after that. I did 2 other startups in between and helped with some other friends to start Bullpen Capital back in around 2010, 2011.
And what's Bullpen Capital? I know you're working with Paul Martino there, a good friend, super guy in the Philly. I'm in the Philly area right now. I know he is too. What's Bullpen Capital about?
Well, it's really Paul's idea. I give him a lot of credit for thinking this through. We figured out there was a niche in the world of venture. We're naturally contrarian investors. So we're trying to do something different than everybody else. And the niche we call post-seed. It's the round after the last seed, but before the big A. It's a very interesting area to be in. Some people think of it as a small A round, but we're really the very end of the seed system. And it's a very good place to be. We love being in the spot in the food chain.
Cool. And B2B and B2C, correct, is your experience at Bullpen?
Yes.
Very cool.
Most of the funds is about 50-50. It's recently gone way toward B2B, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
But usually we don't care.
Educational background? What's your knowledge base coming from?
Well, I was a software guy back when software meant Fortran and BASIC and things nobody remembers anymore.
Very cool.
I went to law school to become a technology lawyer and did that for about 4 or 5 years.
Wait, so you were a lawyer and hold on, sorry to interrupt you. And where did you go to law school?
I went undergrad at Brown Law School at Michigan.
Michigan. There we go. I don't know if Dustin has that graphic, but yes, go blue. I went to Michigan also. But anyway, okay. So went to Michigan. So you're also trained as a lawyer, 4 years in law, and a venture capitalist, an entrepreneur. It's an awesome background. Let's pivot into what I think people want to hear us talk about. But I just wanted people to understand the knowledge base that you're coming from. I won't go into my background. It's on my LinkedIn profile and stuff, and it's not worth going into now. So anyway, let's talk about it. So we have the CARES Act in front of us, this $2 trillion money fund to come in to help the United States recover. And there's about, $377 billion with a B set aside for small businesses. Is that correct? What is a small business? What does this mean? There's one sliver of what we're seeing in front of us that's small business. What is small business within the CARES Act?
Let's pull up a second. The CARES Act is a bridge loan for the whole economy. Okay. And they're trying to get it in our hands as quickly as possible. I think the act is $349 billion for small business, but who's counting at that level?
Right.
There is by far more than enough bridge loan type of money for almost every startup out there to get through the hoops to get the money.
Right.
So that's a starter.
Okay. Let's talk. It's interesting.
Let me just say one thing. I think it's really important to everybody on this. There's a lot of people worried about this, trying to go to the Small Business Administration, trying to get in line. They think it's a government. It's like the DMV. I got to stand in line. I'll never get the money. Don't do that. Chill out. Relax.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't rush. It'll be there for you. So we can get into why. I just want people just to calm down a little bit and prepare for this, but don't have to rush to the door to get it. It's not going to run out of money.
Okay. I guess, though, it's interesting you use the term bridge loan, because I know when we talk to startups and entrepreneurs that we work with in all the different verticals that we operate, people are like, well, I'm raising a bridge loan. And, that classic question, I'm sure you ask it also, a bridge to where? Like, where's it going to lead you to? So I guess where some of the rush is there's a lot of startups, they're tight on runway, they're not going to meet their revenue numbers, they're worried about laying off team members. And, is it a bridge, and where does it get me to? And when does it start? When do I get to step on the bridge, and when can I step back off? But I guess we'll explore those ideas. So can you help us break down, like, who is going to be entitled to these funds? Is it all startups, venture startups, restaurants that are getting crushed? Who's entitled?
Well, it's basically all small business, which is the definition they came up with, 70, 80 years ago. There's a bunch of categories. Most of them seem quite irrelevant. But the simplest way to say it is 500 employees or fewer. And by employees, they mean employees. They're not counting contractors and gig workers and all that. Okay. So that covers most startups. Now, if you happen to be a restaurant, happen to be in the food business, what they call Category 72, there are very sweet rules for you. But for most people, you have to go through the normal rules, not the sweet rules.
Okay. So if it's small businesses, 500 employees or less, gig workers, contractors don't count. There are full-time employees, FTEs. Who would be disqualified that might be watching or listening today that says, oh, cool, I'm good. Like, at a general level, and we're going to drill into this, but any big buckets of companies that still seem like they think like, oh, that sounds like me, but might be disqualified?
I'd have to put it this way. It takes a little bit of understanding. Normally, venture-backed companies don't go to the small business place for loans.
Right.
There was a big reason why not. They'd ask for a personal guarantee. Who wants to do that? They just weren't designed for fast-growing startups at all. So we as an industry, the venture industry, have not really tested the SBA. So they got rid of the personal guarantee rule. So that made it a lot better. And they still have the so-called affiliation rules, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Yep. If we get past the affiliation rules, almost everybody can qualify for this. Okay. So basically, understanding what affiliation means, and I have some late-breaking information from the NVCA, the National Venture Capital Association, which we can also go into. But as a starting point, everybody on this call probably should assume you'll find a way to qualify if you just are patient and let them work out some of the glitches in the process.
When you say patient, could you give us a time frame? Is that patient hours, days, weeks, months?
Well, I'm going to dive deep into look behind the curtain. The way this program works,
oh my God.
The way this program works, you don't go to the SBA. You don't file online. You don't do anything like that. In fact, if you try to file for a normal SBA loan, you may disqualify yourself. So don't do it.
Okay.
You go to your bank. Most companies have a banking relationship. Bank accounts are there. Payroll gets sucked out of it and all that. That's who you go to. Most banks are banks that can handle this. The bank will give you the loan, and in the background, the SBA guarantees it. That's how the process works. Okay. And what you do to qualify, the qualifications for the loan you want. The loan you want is some kind of payroll protection plan loan. It's an awesome loan because it gets forgiven, or it might get forgiven, and it turns into a grant. Let me explain that to you. You get the loan, 4% interest, not a big deal, and it might get forgiven You don't have to pay it back. No more interest. When has the government ever given you free money? This is free money if you get it. So keep that in mind. You have to qualify to get it, and you got to qualify to get forgiven. But they're trying to give you this money. They want you to stay in business. They want to protect the employees. Steve, if I go back to this whole idea of a bridge loan, what they're worried about is economy goes way down, we bounce, but then you got to hire everybody back. The supply chain's all screwed up. It takes time and friction. Slow bounce. They want everybody to stay in place, stay employed. And so when the market bounces and the economy bounces, you can just crank back up again. That's the concept. So they want to give you this loan with the intention, if you don't downsize your employees, it turns into a grant.
Got it. Got it. So is that a key thing? Like one of the things that I want to make sure we hit this a few times, things I shouldn't be doing. Like, oh, you would have been fine if only you didn't do this. Like if you're about to lay off, 10% of your workforce at your startup, are you saying don't do that? Because if you do, you're going to screw up your ability to get this money.
Okay. Great question. Let me answer it the way we've been advising our companies. So what happened about 3 weeks ago is we as a fund hunkered down and said, we've got to get every one of our companies into what I call default alive. Default alive. Right. You have to find a way to get through this chasm, the COVID chasm, and get to the other side. So we asked them all, give us a plan on your current money. You can last 18 months and get to break even or at least survive for 18 months. Put aside all the assumptions you made about how fast you have to grow and what the venture industry wants to see. Right now, they only want to see survival. Right. So survive, and when you come out of it, then we'll rethink how you raise your next round.
Okay.
Now, but again, most companies who do that have to downsize right now. Now, there's a theory on how to downsize, but here's the good news from the point of view of this bridge loan. The way they measure whether you get forgiveness of the loan is in the 2 months after you get it. Maybe a month from now, they give you the loan. The next 2 months, they look at your average employees.
Right.
If you don't decrease them, you can keep the loan. It turns into a grant. So it's possible to downsize right now, hire the people back, and still get to the point at the end of the 2 months you get forgiven.
Because they're looking at the average, is what you're saying. Okay. Got it. Okay. So we've talked about, let me just kind of keep breaking this down. A couple questions I wrote in advance just to kind of think this through. So who could be entitled to these? Companies less than about 500 people. We'll get into affiliation in a little bit. What could you be entitled to? What's the, you're saying it's a loan, it converts into a grant. What's the maximum amount if I'm a startup that I could possibly be entitled to? And then how is that measured? How much could I get of quote unquote free startup
money? If you're a big startup, 10 million.
Okay. What is a big startup? What's that mean? How do I know if I'm a big startup?
Well, let me tell you how they measure it. They look at your payroll expense. Now, in the case of payroll, they look at both 1099 and employees.
Okay, so now contractors are included.
Yes. So they look at your total payroll, including all the benefits and everything, and they look across a baseline. And there's two different baselines. You can look at what they say in there. But in effect, what did you guys do a year ago? What was your baseline payroll? And they'll let you borrow 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Okay. So it's like 10 weeks. Now, there's some adjustment. This is a government. It's not that easy, but it's not that hard. You have to cap. Each individual gets paid more than $100,000 at $100,000.
Okay. Got it.
People below that just roll right in, but above it is capped at 100,000. And contractor is same thing. If you paid a 1099 worker more than 100K, cap it at 100K. So you adjust down to those numbers.
To that upper limit. Okay.
Got it. Baseline. And you get 2.5 times your monthly baseline.
Time over a 10, and what was the 10-week period? It was 2.5 months, I thought.
2.5 months.
10 weeks.
2.5 months.
Got it. Okay.
It's literally 2.5 times your monthly average payroll from a period a year ago.
Got it. So in a sense, correct me if I'm wrong, am I summarizing correctly? It's a 2.5 month bridge. You get it's a lifeline for 2.5 months of your average payroll, right? It's a way of thinking about it.
That's correct.
Got it. Now, okay, cool.
Now, here's the comp. Again, it's never as simple as it sounds, so just listen to me.
Yeah.
To get the baseline, you look at payroll adjusting down to 100K max per person.
Mm-hmm.
To see forgiveness, do we maintain employees? They look at headcount.
Mm-hmm.
So the baseline is payroll, but the 2 months after you get the loan, the average is average headcount. So a year ago, you had 50 employees and 1099. 50. If during the 2 months you average 50, you might start off with 20 and go up, but you average 50, 100% forgiveness. Turns
into a grant. Okay, and then let's back up on that again, because there's so much going on here. I just want to make sure we've unpacked it correctly. So, when we talk about these loans or grants, they're all starting as loans. None of them they don't start as grants, they start as loans. And just to review, I could get up to $10 million from a really big startup. It's a lot of money. It's basically 2.5 months. It's 10 weeks of cash for running at my average payroll. It starts as a loan. The loan is 4%. The other thing about the loan is it is not guaranteed. There's no PG. There's no personal guarantee. For people that are watching, if you don't know what a personal guarantee, I've signed one of those once or twice for some other companies around as an entrepreneur. It sucks when you sign those. You're basically saying, oh, by the way, I pledged my house, my collateral, and if I can't make payment on the loan, you can come seize my assets. It's not a pretty place to be. That's not what's going on here. There's no personal guarantee that the founders, venture capitalists, VCs, investors, nobody's signing a PG here, which is great. It's 4%. And if you do all these great things after that period of time, it turns into a grant, which means I don't need to repay it. I don't earn interest, nothing. Is that correct? It's like it turns into free money.
That's right. And otherwise, then there's always 4%. A government nuance. If it turns out your average headcount drops in the 2 months after, you don't get it completely unforgiven. There's a proportional downward. And they also catch you if you keep headcount high but drop salary. Some cases that doesn't count. There's adjustments. They really want you to maintain your headcount at least 2 months after you have the loan. They really want you to do it because that's when we think the economy is going to bounce, and you'll want to keep all the employees on after that.
Got it, Duncan. Just this is totally your opinion that I'm looking for, and we're going to go back to questions. But do you think this is just the beginning? Meaning, a lot of people have said, and I've talked to a couple of entrepreneurs and investors who've said $2 trillion. This is just the beginning of the bailout. I've heard people throw out numbers $6, $8, $10 trillion to restart this economy. Do you think this ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, maybe venture-backed startups, is going to see even more than this coming in, or is this it? I know it's just an opinion and a guess, but
I think when they throw out numbers like $6 trillion, they're including the Federal Reserve, which is acting in a different end of the food chain. There might be another bill like this. I think Trump is now talking about a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. But that's a different animal. I think from the point of view of we tell our companies, this is it. This is the gift from the gods on high. If you qualify, take it.
Okay. Just some other terms. This is more like vernacular and getting terms out there. There's terms like forgivable loans or covered loans. These are completely different. If anybody who's watching today or is watching on a recast has heard of like SBA loans, that type of thing, like you said, this is not, do not go to the SBA website. Don't go look, how do I apply at the SBA website? It's not an SBA loan. It's not a covered loan. This is you go to your bank and they're eligible to put you through this program. Is that all correct?
That's a good way of thinking of it. What I'm saying is don't apply to the SBA. Go to your bank. If you fall into the wrong loan structure, you're not going to be happy. So just wait for the bank to say we're ready for business. They'll probably contact you and go to the bank.
Got it. And when Treasury, you say go to the bank...
By the way, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin wants the program to start on Friday.
Friday as in this Friday, April the 3rd, I guess is this Friday, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
On the other hand, the banks in the background, this is like listening in on calls between Goldman Sachs and their brethren, calls that nobody should bother listening into. It's too arcane. But they're worried that there's $350 billion they're going to have to lend out with government guarantees. But to the government banking authorities, it looks like a bank loan. And they're worried that it might affect other issues in the banking system, like bank solvency rules and all that. So they're negotiating in the background for the proper regulatory authorities to give them a waiver or at least some guidance on what this means. So München might want to be ready on Friday. Maybe the banking system is still negotiating and it might take a few more weeks. Don't know. The word this morning was a lot of optimism, but sometimes that doesn't go to immediate action. I'm just telling you, be patient. Be patient. Okay. When they get this sorted out, then go.
But should I be reaching out, like, let's, a bank, so many people, and it's not that they sponsor or show anything, but Silicon Valley Bank, right? Like when we think about that, and I know you have a lot of friends there, is that the kind of like, should I be reaching out now just saying, hey, as soon as you have word on this, I want to get started? But you're saying they don't even, the Silicon Valley banks or Chase, whoever, if I use Wells Fargo for my checking account for my venture-backed startup, whoever I use, do I reach out to my relationship person now and say, hey, I want to be in line, tell me when I'm ready?
Well, SVB, I love SVB. I know people.
Silicon Valley Bank, right?
Silicon Valley Bank. I think over half our companies apply for venture debt.
Right.
And more of them bank with SVB. It's very good to the startup community. And if those who haven't noticed, they just did a 3-month delay of paying down principal on SVB loans. A very good act on their part. They're trying to help too.
I saw that. They had the press release, I think, this morning. Yeah.
Yes, they will be one of the banks. But you can imagine everybody in their venture fund and their mother and their brother and have all asked SVB, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? They're just overwhelmed. So don't ask them. Just relax. Right. They have a seminar tomorrow, webinar that people they get notice, can sign into to explain all this. But I just think relax. Don't rush to the door. Not the DMV. The lines won't be really long. The government won't run out of money. München even said if the 349 gets used up, he'll find more.
Okay.
So they're not going to run out of money for you. Just don't overwhelm the system. Let the system get ready for you.
But I think, it's the problem is it's not hoarding, but it's like people worried about running out of toilet paper, right? It's not, try to relax. I'm trying to relax, but I'm trying to meet payroll, right? I'm just thinking, I'm putting myself in, I'm just trying to empathize and stand in the shoes of a founder right now who's sitting there looking at payroll, looking at revenue being down, looking at the time ticking up against their, when they run out of cash till they can get their next round. And the rush is like, I want to get that money. I'm trying to be patient, but I'm worried. So I can feel the pressure. And we hear it in some of our founders who say, I want to just make sure I can get to the other side. So I want to make sure I'm in line and holding my place. Now,
let me comment on that.
I'm not worried they're going to run out of money. I'm worried I'm going to run out of money before I get to their money.
I got it. Let me comment on that. I actually don't expect the money will show up for 4 to 6 weeks. Just the process and time and the negotiating.
So wait, let me just restate that. So what money in my bank account, so I'm a startup, I'm at Silicon Valley Bank, I'm not going to see money in my account for, you're saying, probably till, call it mid-June? Wait, all the way through, mid-May, excuse me, let me not scare people. So mid-May, maybe, that I'd see this cash.
Yes, I get this from listening in on the bank calls, and they may be overly pessimistic, and they may be negotiating. But for planning purposes, assume this magic money doesn't show up until mid-May.
Okay.
Just because it'll take time with 1 million small businesses knocking on 1,000 banks. You do the math. That's a lot of time to process a lot of people.
Right.
So you've got to go from here to there. What we've recommended to every one of our companies is come up with your default alive plan. You undoubtedly will have to downsize right now to get through this chasm. The most of the venture funds are telling their companies, not us, but most of them are saying, just lay the people off. The government has really good benefits, extended unemployment, $600 a week. They're going to take care of people. So you can make that decision for your employees. Here's what we have recommended. We think it's the most clever and humane way to do it. We put them into furlough. We continue to pay their medical.
Right.
In effect, they're on a leave of absence. And under stock option rules, most stock option plans will say
they're still
you
vesting.
can be on leave of absence for 90 days and still vest.
That is clever.
And the point where you got to decide to exercise your options now put off for 6 months. The 90 days, another 90 days, right? So you're still vesting stock, and we pay your medical, because if you get sick with the coronavirus, you want to be covered by medical more than anything else if you're one of the bad cases. All right. The furlough means you can be hired back very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory of the case is you put them on furlough, you save the company from going under.
Mm-hmm.
If the magic money comes in, we do apply, we do qualify, we get it, then we can ramp the company back up again using this new loan.
Got it. No, that's clever. Okay, so let's go through some other things. So what are some size terms and maybe limitations of these? Well, I was going to call them SBA loans, but they're not. They're CARES Act loans from my bank. They're not from the SBA. Again, size, terms, any limitations? We've talked about some of this. Maximum size is $10 million. What if I'm a smaller startup? How does that get gauged? Let's say I'm 10 to 15 people. I've raised a few $1 million in outside capital. I'm doing $1 or $2 million a year ARR. Like what could I be thinking about that I'd qualify for?
Well, your payroll may be somewhere around $100,000 a month. You get $250.
Got it.
And again, this is the adjusted payroll. Payroll.
Right.
You peak everybody at 100K if they're above 100K. You can throw in 1099 if you have them. Mm-hmm. It's adjusted payroll, so you might get $250 out of it.
Got it. So it's all like you said. It's going to be based on my payroll times 2.5 months on an average basis. Okay, and then limits, we know it's 4% interest, but that could be forgiven if it gets turned into a grant. We talked all about that. What else? So what do startups need to do to qualify, and what if they already laid off people? So like, let's say, one of the problems would be this just got enacted, Mnuchin, and people are talking behind the scenes. You're on calls with banks, and those calls must be riveting. I'm just kidding. But anyway, no, I'm sure they're interesting. And I know, Paul talks about you're an SEC kind of trained attorney, but it's got to be. I'm sure it's really, really interesting. But so, what if I already laid off people 2 weeks ago? I went into my disaster plan. I think Paul, not your Paul, but Paul from Y Combinator always, how can you be a cockroach? So I went right into cockroach mode. And I started laying off everybody. Am I screwed, or now I have that kind of almost employee averaging going on? So just to come back to it, what do I need to do to qualify? And what if I've already laid off people or cut salaries?
Well, first of all, read the rules on what the baseline is. If you're really new, I think the baseline is the first 6 weeks of this year, January 1 to February 15. That's your baseline of head count.
Right, for that kind of test, okay? Mm-hmm.
Head count test. And then the baseline for most companies goes back, I think it's March to June, a year ago. Mm-hmm. That's your baseline. So that's your baseline they'll compare against after you get the loan to see if you kept headcount averaging the right amount. Now, point is, if you hire back to the level your headcount was during that reference period, 100% forgiveness. Again, with some adjustments, there's some adjustments in there, but you'll get 80, 90, 100% forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So if you've already gone cockroach and laid people off and you get the loan, you could treat it like a loan. 4% interest is not going to kill you.
Right.
But the purpose of the loan is to give you an incentive to hire back up to your reference average so it gets forgiven.
Okay, cool. Let me keep going. By the way, I can see in the spreadsheet behind the scenes, everyone who's asking questions across LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live. Thank you for asking, Paul. Duncan, holy shit, do we have a lot of questions to answer. So they're really rich questions. So we're going to get to them. We'll go for about another 10 minutes. Again, if you're just joining us, our guest today is Duncan Davidson from Bullpen Capital. He's in Atherton, California today, right near Palo Alto. Steve Barsh from Dreamit Ventures, streaming from my home office in Philadelphia, just outside Philadelphia. And again, thank you. It's really helpful, and you're giving nice, clear, straightforward answers. It's greatly appreciated. Let me keep going a little bit more, and then we'll get into questions. So, I want to talk about affiliation rules, right? That's seems like the really big sticking point that everybody is talking about. Could you help us understand what are affiliation rules? Why should I care? How does this impact, if I've got VC funding, this kind of, I think it's around the 500 person limit starts to kick in. Could you help us understand that, Duncan?
I'll try. It's arcane stuff that even a legally trained mind says, this is why I left the practice of law. I don't want to have to deal with this crap.
Okay.
I think originally, remember, the SBA rules are old. I mean, old from the sense of a modern economy, 50s, 60s. Mm-hmm. I think the reason for them was private equity firms or conglomerates scared them that you could create a bunch of little companies and cheat the system.
Right.
From the venture point of view, they're just annoying because they don't fit our way of thinking. So The basic test, I don't want to go through all of it. It's kind of like the narrow rules and the broad rules. But the first test is, do the investors have control of the company?
Mm-hmm.
If they do, you may have a hard time getting past affiliation rules.
Got it.
So control is defined. This is what I love about the government, the SBA, and these arcane rules.
Mm-hmm.
The control is defined as, can the investors block a quorum of the board?
Okay.
Now,
I need to pull out my share purchase agreement and my board of directors. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A simple version, I'd put it this way. A lot of companies have a 3-person board, 2 common, 1 investor, or a 5-person board, 2 common, 1 independent, 2 investors.
Right.
In both cases, the common/independent has majority control of the board.
Right.
So the test would be, can those 3 out of the 5 hold a board meeting if the investors go, we're not coming?
Right.
That means you can do a quorum and you can vote.
Got it.
But it effectively means that the board have control by the investors, or the board have control by the independents and the managers.
Right.
So first rule, if the investors do not control the board, you pass the first hoop.
Okay.
Now, a lot of venture later stage will not get past this hoop.
I was going to say, it almost seems like Series B and above, I'm kind of getting stuck.
Yeah, you get one of these big boards full of a lot of happy investors, you probably don't pass the test.
Okay.
But pre-seed, seed, post-seed, most Series A, you still have control by the investors, by the managers and their independents, not the investors.
Okay.
All right.
Could there be... Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, first you get past that, and then you get into the really deep murk. Okay. That's the easy rule.
Okay. Can you help us understand the deep a little bit?
The second part of the test, once you get past this calling a quorum or not, the second part of the test is, do the investors have effective control even if they don't control the board? And they're looking really at protective provisions in your preferred stock agreement. You have those things.
Right.
And there's the NVCA is doing a great job here, and they had a couple law firms come up with an analysis of these type of control provisions are bad, and these are okay.
And we'll put a link, by the way, in the description so people want to. I know the 4-pager I think we were emailing about it last night. It's a very good document. Yeah.
It's a very good document. Like all legal documents, it says we don't quite know.
Right.
It doesn't say here is the clear path to go through between a rock and a hard place. But instead it says these are the weighted both ways. Now, I've looked through that with some of my companies in mind, and I can see a path through. So there may be a path through for a lot of companies. A lot of the provisions which are okay are protective provisions in normal docs, like you can't increase the number of shares without the shareholder approval. Well, that turns out to be okay.
Right. Okay.
Right. Things like that. You can't sell the company without us approving. Well, that's okay.
Right.
So they try to distinguish between interfering with day-to-day operations and interfering with the big operations, big strategic moves. All right. So, but for today's purpose, we don't need to go there. I'll tell you what. The NVCA has been lobbying vigorously to get a waiver on these affiliation rules.
Right.
And, fingers crossed. Sometimes lobbyists do work.
Right.
They are making progress, they said this morning. Now,
and this is like Justin Field and Associates, right, at the NVCA, I think is the one. Yeah.
If you've read his latest missive on this, he said, we're making progress. Doesn't mean he's got it, but he's trying to get clear, either a complete waiver of this or a much brighter line between when you have control and when you don't.
Of affiliation rules, specifically. That's what
on affiliation rules. Because if the problem with the affiliation rules, just for people who want to get into the legal crap, is if a venture fund is considered to have control,
everybody just dropped off the stream. I'm just kidding. Keep going. We want to get into the league. Yeah, okay.
Affiliation means if the big investor, your venture fund or a group of funds, has effective control, then the number of employees you have include all their other companies.
Got it.
So instead of you being a 30-person firm, you're actually part of this enormous conglomerate of evil people. That's 3,000 people. We can't give you the money.
Okay.
Now, I did it on purpose. It's kind of absurd. The whole NVCA is thinking this stuff makes absolutely no sense. Venture funds don't think, well, we have a conglomerate or keiretsu of all these companies, and we're just kind of dividing it up to fool the government. That's not how people think in the venture world.
Yeah. Got it. So let's I want to do a little recap there. Keep asking some questions, and then we'll go into audience questions. I just want to, for some people that might be like standing on the edge of a cliff as a startup and a founder concerned, let's talk about people that probably shouldn't at all be concerned about affiliation issues, and hopefully Justin and associate at the NVCA, National Venture Capital Association in Washington, are going to hopefully make this all go away anyway. If I've raised a friends and family round, if I've raised a seed round, if I've raised an angel round, and all I've done is a safe note or some simple kind of convertible note, I probably don't need to worry about any of this. I'm going to qualify. Is that correct?
Most likely.
Most likely.
I will say most likely, because even some cap converts and safe notes have started putting protective provisions in. They've evolved into a big, ugly document. But the 2-page, 3-page simple note, you're not even a shareholder. You're not on the board. You have no control at all. You just want your money back, right? So,
maybe you have material information rights, but that's about it, right? They won't even get that.
Yeah.
Right? You have information rights.
You probably have the best shot at getting the money, if that's true.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me keep going. Affiliation rules. We talked about that. We talked about things like high net worths, family offices, depending on where we got it. All right. So, and then what's the role, if any, in a venture fund in getting these loans? Is my VC going to be involved if I have to go to the bank? So now I'm not going to the SBA. I'm going to my bank. I'm emailing people at the right time at Silicon Valley Bank or Chase or Wells Fargo, wherever I may bank, or TD. Is my VC involved in this at all if I'm venture backed?
Well, yes, but mostly as an information clearinghouse of listening to the NVCA and coordinating with both SVB and with, you get my point. We are not directly going to get you your loan, but we're going to help advise you, because we're seeing this across dozens and dozens of companies, and we're trying to give everybody advice and avoid every single company having to learn all by themselves.
Okay.
Well, we'll probably advise you to do are 4 things. Okay, number 1, be patient. Number 2, come up with your default alive plan and execute on it, because you can't assume the loan will come in.
Right.
Number 3, if you have venture debt, talk to that lender. If it's SVB, they're your bank too. If it's somebody like WTI or some of the other lenders, talk to them.
Right.
They will have to be involved, because you're getting another loan and they have certain rights. So make sure they're aware of this ahead of time. The final thing is go read the rules, not the stupid affiliation rules. Go read the qualification rules, the baseline rules, the head count, forgiveness, and then do the math. Be prepared with, this is my payroll, I've done the 100,000 cap, this is 1099, these are employees, here's my head count level, here's the reference period. Be prepared to walk into your bank with that. Make it easy for them.
Right. Okay, and we'll put a link again in the descriptions. We'll repost this, and we'll put links in if people are wondering, where I can get this information. Because there's some really well done infographics and documents that kind of lay this out and make this pretty straightforward to apply. Okay, so we talked about venture funds, and of course, I don't think any venture fund is going to get in the way, right? Dustin's putting up. Thank you, Dustin. By the way, there's a whole team of Dreamit people behind the scenes. Dustin, thank you. Victoria, Charles, helping produce this today, and again, Duncan, thanks for streaming in. We have lots of questions. Don't go anywhere. We have lots of questions, but. So VCs aren't going to get in my way because they're very aligned, right? They don't want the company going under. They want to get this kind of quote unquote free money, the 4% interest on it that eventually becomes a grant. If it's originally a loan, it becomes a grant. A venture investor is going to say that's terrific. It doesn't dilute them down and it helps extend the company. So, quote unquote free money is a really good thing. All right. I was going to ask how to apply. We hit that. That'll probably come up in the questions again. We talked about that. And the other question, Duncan, is your thoughts. Where can startups, we're going to get into questions in a minute, where can startups get news and updates on all of this? Where do you think are some of the best sources of information? Is it SBA? Is it the NVCA? Where do you think, where are you getting your information from? Where should they be looking at?
Well, when this all started, I had 4 different law firms. I got on their lists. I talked to several banks. There are 2 accounting firms. So I kind of went around to a circle of groups that are all trying to worry this thing through. I think if you have venture investors, most of them have done the same process, and they'll have some font of information that you can talk to get everything.
Okay.
At some point, you'll do it yourself. But what I have found the most useful information, the NVCA, because they're lobbying to change affiliation, is the most up to speed on what's going on. That's the best source of information I find. Some of the accounting firms and some of the law firms that surround venture have done really good reports. So you can see what they're talking about too. I think Cooley, because they're involved with NVCA, has put out a blog.
The law firm, right?
Cooley, the law firm. They put out some really good stuff on this too. And so has Fenwick and Gunderson and everybody else. But I think Cooley is because they're working with NVCA, is also the second best font of information for this. So I don't have the link in front of me, but you can find a link to a blog they have, and they have a resource center and all that.
Right. Okay, and I think Dustin flashed it up for a minute. We'll put the links in. Okay, so we're going to get to questions. We have about 20. We'll try to huff through them really, really quickly. Just one quick thing just about Dreamit. And Duncan, I appreciate you being on. Duncan's going to stay on. I asked him, how long can you stay on for questions? And he was like, we can just keep going till we're done. So if you want to hang in there, we'll answer your questions. Just a quick moment for Dreamit. Every day we work with secure tech, health tech, and urban tech startups. We help build them, invest in them. We kind of focus like you are. It's all pre-Series A is what we're looking for and what we invest in. And we love to share best practices with startups around the world. We love to work with other great investors like Bullpen Capital and Paul Martino and Duncan Davidson today. And if people have questions for us, let us know. We're going to go through. We're going to start bringing up questions if that's okay. I think some of these may have already been asked. I started to scan them in the background, but we'll just bring them up one at a time. And here we go. So the first question that came up, it said, realistically, how long do you think until I would have the money? Kind of reminds me of that movie. I can't remember. Show me the money. We kind of talked about this, but let's call it's April 1st. Tomorrow it's April Fool's Day. When do you think I would have money if I'm a startup? Is it that mid-May?
Yeah, mid-May.
Mid-May.
You might get it earlier. I just think plan on May 15th.
Got it. Okay, that was our first question. Next question, I'll just keep reading them in, and if Dustin gets a chance, hopefully we'll put them up. If I only took friends, we kind of answered this. If I already took friends and family or angel funding, do affiliation rules apply or issues apply?
Well, unlikely, because they're unlikely to control the company or have the VC style protective provisions.
Got it. Okay. Next question. Here you go. Next question is, who is my best source of advice? Should I be turning to my investors, attorneys, accountants? Any ideas?
Well, in the end, it'll be the banks. So just so everybody's clear, there's a bunch of banks, probably over 1,000, that are qualified to handle SBA loans. The SBA guarantees, they handle the loan. They're also to be FDIC insured banks. So you probably are banking with one of those banks. They're going to be the ones to go through your application. So to some extent, they are at the end, both your friend and your best source of information. Before that, go back to the NVCA docs, go back to the Cooley stuff, talk to your accounting firm. Problem is, you have to become a lawyer to really understand some of this stuff.
Right.
But I think I think from your outside law firm, if it's involved with venture capital companies, they will also teach themselves to advise you.
Okay.
And to a lesser extent, your accounting firm. So start with the bank, then go to the law firm, then go to the accounting firm.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Next question. It's already up. What should I not do at this point to maximize my chances of getting funding? We kind of talked about who qualified. Is there something like, oh, you shouldn't have done that? That was a record scratch. You had it, and you snapped cash you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Is there anything I shouldn't do right now that you could think of?
Well, don't apply to the SBA for a normal loan. Got it. Some of these programs you can duplicate with this payroll protection plan, the free money, but some you can't. So whatever you do, the first thing the bank may ask you, have you applied for another SBA loan? Do you have another SBA loan? You say yes, you're out. So don't do it. Okay. I think that's the clearest rule I can think of. The second thing is some people might want to play lawyer and find a way to negotiate a change in the legal docs to find a way through. Don't do that. Let them negotiate down into a simpler set of, don't Just relax. Don't do
who's
that.
they? You said they negotiate down. Who's
they?
The
The NVCA lobbying to the Treasury and the banks lobbying with the Treasury, everybody and their mother lobbying the Treasury to get this thing to work. That's who they are. They are a collection of people all trying to make this work.
Well, everybody and their mother. I don't know who your mother. My mother is not lobbying on my behalf. That's a different story. Okay.
I'm talking about next. Your mother. I thought it was your
mother. Okay. Okay. Chance of funding. Next question that came up. When do you think the next big update is going to be on all this? You were kind of talking about, the Justin Field and NVCA, and they're active, and it's like this is almost happening daily. Any expectation on the next update? Because maybe we'll do another show, another episode when there's another big update. Any expectations?
Well, if Munchen is correct, he's trying to get the program to start on this Friday. Mm-hmm. There'll be some sort of update by this Friday. Okay. And if the NVCA's optimism is warranted, who knows, where they think they've made a lot of progress, they should have an update, if not tomorrow, by Friday.
Okay, so by the end of this week, there should be a big update. Okay.
End of this week is probably safe. And again, I'm telling everybody, don't sit in the edge of your chair about this. Right. Take care of your company. Make sure you go default alive. Take all those steps. Mm-hmm. We talked about a way you can take those steps and still qualify and still be able to get forgiveness. Right. But just take the steps assuming no money. And then if the money comes, then you can restructure your company to take advantage of it.
Got it. But by the way, I have just a question I'm going to ask. I was talking to Paul Martino the other day. He told me that you actually read the CARES Act cover to cover. Is that true? Did you read the whole monster thing?
I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd try it. No.
Okay, wait.
I've not read it all the way through, but I have read the relevant provisions here.
And Paul told me you read it like 3 times. Because even Paul was like, "Oh my gosh, how did he do that?"
I don't really understand some of it, but I've read parts of it more than once.
Oh my God. I know. Let's go to audience questions. Okay. What types of payments? Next question. What types of payments are eligible for loan forgiveness? For example, rent, payroll, like everything, nothing, or just payroll?
Money can be used for anything. Mm-hmm. It's a loan. It's money. You can use it for anything.
Got it.
I would say there's only one big exception to what I've been saying, which is cannabis. Cannabis companies do not qualify, and they probably don't want you to go smoke weed after you do this. But no, it's intended to be general purpose money.
Got it.
The forgiveness test is do you maintain payroll, maintain headcount, right? That's the forgiveness test. But they're not telling you can only spend it on payroll.
Got it.
Spend it whatever you want.
So payroll is my forgiveness test. Payroll is my measurement of how much money I'm entitled to. But once I get the cash, I can spend it on whatever I want. And is it true that dispensaries in California are still open, or are they actually closed? I'm just kidding. All right. Okay. So that answers
essential. That. You got to understand that's called an essential service in California. So
yes.
There you go.
Okay. Next question. Getting through it. Should startups, and this may have been, should startups look to specific types of lenders to get loans from the program, normal banks? It sounds like you just go back to your bank that you're already banking with.
Yeah, if you can ask your bank ahead of time, are you an SBA approved bank? Are you FDIC insured? If they go yes, then you ask them, you're going to participate in this program. Now, they get fees for doing the program.
Okay.
Let's understand, this isn't free to them. They're not giving something away free.
Okay, so they're making money.
A loan origination fee. So they're giving them an incentive in the background to take care of you.
Okay.
So I think almost every bank will do it.
Let's say I was with a smaller bank, my local regional bank in Philadelphia, and they're like, I don't do this. Could I go to a bank that I have no relationship for and say, I want to do a loan with you?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably. I'm sure SVB would open its door for you.
Okay.
So probably could. Probably. Okay. Also, I assume all the big dogs, Chase, JP Morgan, B of A, are all going to be doing this. So if you're in a big dog, go talk to them.
Okay, cool. Next question. I think we may have answered this, but they're just in the queue, so we'll just keep going through. What happens if funds are used accidentally for non-approved purposes? I can't think of a non-approved purpose that you'd use the funds for, because you're saying I can use it for whatever I want.
I think so. There may be stuff in the rules, because again, you start falling into SBA land with weird bureaucratic nonsense. So I don't know. There may be stuff in the rules you got to watch out for, but we're just advising our companies, spend it on what you're going to spend it on anyway. It's like treated like venture money. I mean, you can't go off and you're not going to go to Cabo right now. You probably can't even fly there for one thing.
Right.
That's not what you use it for. You have to use it for your business. It's got to be for a business purpose. It's got to be proof, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And it's not venture people that'll crucify you. Your bank will crucify you.
Right.
If you give you the loan, you don't treat it like real money.
Okay. Cool. We're about a third of the way through the questions. We appreciate all of your time and everybody who's tuned in. Let me go back up and make sure I'm on the right question. Next question is from Emery Caritas, if I pronounce that correctly. Should venture-backed startups who qualify under the affiliation rules apply for PPP or EIDL or both, and why?
Okay. PPE, EIDL.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Explain to me what those mean. You're beyond my knowledge.
I don't know. I'd have to look them up myself, and we could come back. And by the way, if that was asked in like LinkedIn, I don't know what that is. I'm happy to.
Okay, I think I know what they're getting.
Yeah.
I think I know what they're getting at. There are multiple programs that apply, but if she's referring to PPE, it's a payroll protection expenditure, which is what this program is.
Got it.
Just apply to that. There's some other things, like you get a tax rebate for payroll, and there's another program the SBA has. No, I think this is either or for those programs. Again, if I understand what IDL means, I can look it up on Google while we're talking.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. PPP, Triple P, Paycheck Protection Program, kind of what you're saying, and EIDL is the Economic Injury and Disaster Loans. So the Triple P is up to 2.5 months of payroll costs. Is what you were talking about, with a maximum of $10 million. The Economic Injury Disaster Loans, the EIDL, up to $12 million based on actual economic injury determined by the SBA. So so that's what those.
I'm not familiar with that program, so I can't comment.
Okay, all right. Let's keep going. Avi Lichtenstein asks, what about startups that have half the team overseas? Good question. Can they still get a loan for the whole company or just the U.S. entity? It almost sounds like the cruise line issue. Sorry, I won't bring that up. It's a very interesting international issue. But anyway, so let me just read it again so I don't distract us.
No, I get the issue. And I'm so glad this question was asked.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
This applies to Americans.
Yeah. Okay. Only U.S. payroll.
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Not applied to overseas payroll.
Got it. Okay. Cool. I don't know if you know, on the cruise lines, the Carnivals and the Royal Caribbeans, they're all, we're a Bermuda entity. We're from Liberia. Great. You've been paying 1% tax. Go have Bermuda bail you out of the situation. That's probably not what's going to happen, but it's kind of interesting. Anyway, it's a different situation, but anyway. Okay. Next question is from Bruce Woodry. How does this affect companies with payrolls that began in January 2020 without 2019 payroll history? Now, you'd said something about the test being January.
Yes, there's two test periods.
Yeah.
First test period, I think, is the first 6 weeks of this year.
Okay.
And the way they do it, I think you have to be in existence by February 15 or you can't qualify. Maybe I should have mentioned that.
2020.
2020.
Got it. Okay.
So if you're really new, you have nothing to protect, right?
Right.
So if you start like on January 15, I think they look at the average over the first 6 weeks. It's only 4 weeks. That in a way is good for you. It's a low average.
Got it. Okay, cool. Next question. Thanks, Bruce. The next question is from Ben Brown. Ben asks, what will the process to have the loan forgiven or turn into a grant? Will the bank manage the process or the SBA or behind door number 3? So again, what will the process be to have the loan forgiven or turn into a grant? Do you know?
I think the intention is the bank does it.
Okay.
It's your bank you're supposed to be banking through anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the bank takes care of that. But I don't know, actually. This is a very good question. I don't know the specific procedure because you're now dealing with headcount numbers and not dollars. And so a different test for forgiveness.
Okay, I'm making some notes in our spreadsheets of some things we'll look up and post in the comment section, depending on what platform. If that came in from LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, we'll post back the answer to those in a little bit more detail, so not a problem. Okay, next question, we have about 6 more to go. And again, appreciate you staying on so long with us today. Avriel Hillman asks, it's long. What about, can you read it? I don't know if you can read that on the screen. I'm just going to read it from my sheet. What about startups by sole entrepreneurs who would have had employees working on commission with projected revenue but no previous record of revenue. Can we get a loan off projected revenue? I think I know the answer. And can one get a loan based on owner, founder, salary? Ooh, interesting.
The answer to the first is no. The answer to the second is up to $100,000.
Okay.
Per person.
There you go. Right. It's payroll. It's not revenue. It's not what you think your revenue may have been. It is strictly a payroll test capped at $100,000 per employee. Or did you say contractor or not contractor?
1099 is also
1099.
Up to 100K. And I think in the weirdness of how federal governments do stuff, they'll include your benefits, but not your federal payroll taxes.
That's a double dip, I guess. Okay.
You have to read the fine print when you do the calculation. There's some kind of little nuance at the top of what is payroll.
Okay. All right. Here, let's keep
going. They
going.
don't want to fund your taxes and pay themselves back, right?
I know. I was just thinking it's just a funnel of cash. It's kind of cool.
Exactly.
Like a fountain, and the water just keeps recirculating. Okay. John Corky asks, what's available for founders and employees not taking a salary yet, working for equity? I think I know the answer. Can we still take advantage of this? I know. I'm going to let you answer. No. I think I know. Just drop the hammer.
No, your baseline is, if your baseline is zero, your baseline is zero.
Okay. By the way, here's another. I'll ask a derivative of that. I'm thinking of all the variations as an entrepreneur, all the startups where, I'm not really taking salary, but I just take dividends out sometimes when I can get some cash out of my LLC. I'm not even set up as a C Corp yet. Same type of thing. This is payroll, correct? That is the test.
Payroll or 1099, yes.
Payroll or right, or if I was being 1099.
Yeah, things that have a receipt that goes to the government taxing authority.
Okay. What if I was used Expensify and I was being repaid I'm just kidding. All right. Okay. Next question from Michael Goodman asks, are the loans only based on payroll expenses or can a company apply for a greater amount? I'll let you hit it.
Payroll with the cap at 100K. Yep.
Cap at 100K and something about benefits and 1099. Okay. Kieran Miller asks, can we use the money to expand hiring and still get loan forgiveness?
That's brilliant. If you meet the headcount rules.
Kieran Miller, you got a brilliant from.
You can go above the headcount and get forgiveness of 100%. Right?
Okay. All right. Good question, Kieran. Okay. Daniel Turner asks, hey, Daniel, I know Daniel. We have 3 more to go. Daniel Turner asks if we're actively working on a government contract, an SBIR grant, and it's a Wednesday and the moon's in the 4th quarter. No, if we're actively working on a government grant, a government contract, an SBR grant, and the contracts provide some funding for salary, not 100%, would this disqualify us or limit us for qualifying in any way?
Okay, my headphone blew up in the middle of that, but I got something about SBRs. Why don't you give me the full story again?
Sure, give it to you again. So if we're actively working on a government contract, an SBIR grant, and the contracts provide some funding for salary, not 100%, would this disqualify us or limit us for qualifying in any way?
That is above my level. I will say the following for SBIR people. The DOD has got its own program.
Oh, wow.
I don't have all the details, but they're putting out also tons of money in a variety of cases for people. And it's more like you get more SBIR money, grants, as opposed to this payroll protection plan. So if you're already involved with the DOD, the 3 initial agencies, go find out about their program. It's pretty awesome. And they're very aggressive trying to find people that can comply with what they're looking for.
Okay, great. So look for the DOD program as well. Okay, last 2 questions we have. And if anybody else has any other questions, we have a couple more minutes. James Hutchinson asks, are you eligible if you are a sole founder with no employees yet and you're paying yourself not through payroll, but disbursements? I think I know the answer.
Look, I think those type of edge cases, you might have to get a really good discussion going with your bank and maybe they'll find a way. But the way the thing is structured, you fall out of what they're trying to do here. So I guess the general answer is if you have an edge case like that, go talk to a lawyer who's an expert in this crap instead of me. They may be able to find a way. But just appreciate SBA rules are designed to avoid gamesmanship. Their rules.
Right.
So they're kind of designed to prevent this type of things from happening.
And they want And they want you to retain your payroll, retain your employees, right? That's what it's looking to do. Yeah. Don't lay people off. If you're the founder, you're not laying yourself off, so to say. But okay, last question, then we'll do some wrap up. What about so Greg Duffy asks, what about the disaster loan assistance from the SBA? I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you read this one 3 times. Should we not apply for that until we finalize our CARES Act application? Disaster loan assistance.
Well, this sounds like the same thing you asked me about 3-4 questions ago. I don't know about that other program to answer. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, that is all of our questions. Duncan, a couple things. Just one other ask. If there's a big update, could we do this again with you for next week? I don't know if people chime in on the questions in the comments. I don't know if they want us to do it again. If there's a big update, maybe we could do it again, and there's an attorney or two we could try to bring in and have a whole panel discussion if that might work for you.
Look, I'm happy to come back. I think it'd be great if there's the update. We get an NVCA person or lawyer and a banker.
Right.
I know you were trying today, but they're waiting until it gets clear. When it gets clear, you bring them on, and I'll be in the audience because I want to hear what they have to say.
Okay, cool. All right, really appreciate it. Let's just wrap up. Duncan Davidson, thanks so much from Bullpen Capital on the West Coast. Great VC firm, good friends with Duncan and Paul Martino, who's on the East Coast. They're a great, as your late seed kind of stage investor, terrific B2B and B2C. For those watching, just our closing remarks, please make sure to check out our Dreamit Dose on YouTube. Lots of pragmatic techniques, all the mistakes we see startups make again and again. And we just get so aggravated. We record these short 5-minute videos on please don't make these mistakes when you're pitching. Make sure to please catch up on past and upcoming Dreamit Live episodes. You can go to dreamit.com/live. Later this week on Friday, we have Jason Calacanis is going to be on talking about what his views are on the super angel and seed stage. He's going to be on. We'll have an interesting conversation. Last week, if you saw up there, you were mentioning about crossing the chasm. We had Jeffrey Moore on last week. I don't know if you've ever read his article, by the way, Duncan, on provocative selling, how to sell in difficult times. Great article from 2008. I remember reading it in the last downturn. He was on this past week talking about it. He was terrific. If you get a chance, you should watch that episode. And just wanted to thanks Duncan. Thanks for spending time with us, everybody. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to catch future episodes. Thanks so much. Take care from Philly.